Once upon a time, the American dream was a promise, a vision that if you work hard, played by the rules, and stayed committed, you could rise, achieve, and secure a prosperous life for yourself and your family. A single paycheck could support a family. A steady job could buy a home. Education was a stepping stone, not a burden. That dream was not just an ideal. It was the foundation upon which America built its identity, its economy, and its culture. But over the past few decades, that dream has started to unravel. What was once attainable now seems increasingly elusive. Millions of Americans find themselves caught between stagnant wages, rising costs, and a system that appears to favor the wealthy over the hard-working middle class. This is not a story of a single failure, a single policy mistake, or a single economic downturn. It is a story of a systemic shift, a transformation of the very structures that once supported stability and opportunity. The decline of the American middle class did not happen overnight. It is a gradual erosion, a slow leak of opportunity, security, and hope. It began subtly, almost imperceptibly, in the late 20th century, but its effects are now painfully visible. Jobs that once guaranteed a reliable income were outsourced overseas. Manufacturing towns, once the backbone of the economy, became ghost towns. Automation replaced skilled labor. The once powerful labor unions weakened. And while the cost of living continued to climb, wages failed to keep pace. Families who once felt secure began to struggle. The dream of owning a home slipped further out of reach for young adults. College education, once a pathway to upward mobility, became a mountain of debt for millions. Healthcare costs, housing, transportation, and childcare steadily consumed larger portions of household budgets. What was once an attainable dream for most Americans now requires sacrifices so extreme that many feel the system is rigged against them. The story of this decline is not just about economics, it is about people, the men and women who built the nation, the families who try to maintain dignity amidst hardship, and the next generation that faces a future far less certain than their parents' past. To understand how we arrived here, it is essential to look back at the period when the middle class was thriving. In the decades after World War II, America experienced unprecedented economic growth. Factories were booming, producing cars, appliances, and goods that fueled the economy. Wages grew steadily. Labor unions ensured that workers were treated fairly, and home ownership was not a dream but a common reality. Families could raise children knowing that if they work hard, their children could achieve even more. During this period, the middle class was not only economically secure but socially influential. They shaped politics, culture, and the very narrative of the nation. Their purchasing power drove innovation and business growth. They were the backbone of local communities, investing in schools, infrastructure, and civic life. In many ways, this era represented the promise of the American dream fulfilled, a society where effort and ambition could reliably produce success. Yet even in this prosperous period, the seeds of decline were quietly being sown. Globalization, technological advancements, and shifts in economic policy began to change the landscape. Initially, these changes were seen as progress. New markets opened, technology streamlined production, and opportunities appeared to expand. But as the decades progressed, these forces created unintended consequences that would eventually weaken the middle class. By the 1980s and 1990s, a noticeable shift occurred. Manufacturing jobs, which had provided stable wages and benefits, began to disappear. Many were outsourced to countries with cheaper labor costs. Automation replaced positions once held by human workers. The decline of unions reduced bargaining power, leaving workers with fewer protections and stagnant wages. Meanwhile, inflation and the rising cost of living eroded purchasing power, making it harder for families to maintain the standard of living they had known in previous decades. At the same time, higher education, once a bridge to opportunity, transformed into a financial burden. College costs soared, and student loans became a permanent fixture in the lives of young Americans. Many graduated with impressive degrees but crushing debt, limiting their ability to buy homes, start families, or invest in the future. The very system designed to create opportunity began to create financial strain instead. Housing, too, became a critical challenge. Once affordable homes became increasingly out of reach for middle-class families, particularly in urban and suburban areas. The 2008 financial crisis exposed the fragility of the system, with millions losing their homes and savings. Even after the recovery, home ownership rates stagnated, and housing affordability continues to be a pressing concern. Healthcare, once considered a manageable expense, has become another barrier. Skyrocketing costs, deductibles, and insurance premiums force families to make impossible choices. Should they pay for treatment or cover basic living expenses? These pressures, combined with the economic shifts, have created a middle class under siege. The human impact of these changes is profound. Families struggle to make ends meet. Parents work multiple jobs just to cover necessities. Children grow up in environments where stress and uncertainty are constant companions. Mental health challenges rise, and the sense of stability and optimism that once defined the middle class is replaced by anxiety and doubt. Across the nation, communities that once thrived now face decay and decline. Towns dependent on factories or industrial jobs have seen population declines, school closures, and rising crime rates. Neighborhoods that were once vibrant are now dotted with abandoned homes and boarded-up businesses. These changes ripple outward, affecting social cohesion, civic engagement, and trust in institutions. Politically, the decline of the middle class has fueled polarization and frustration. Many Americans feel abandoned by policymakers who seem to favor corporations and the wealthy. Economic inequality has reached historic levels, with a growing perception that the system rewards privilege rather than effort. This tension is reflected in voting patterns, protests, and social movements across the country. Yet amid this decline, stories of resilience and hope persist. Communities band together to support struggling families. Small businesses emerge as new engines of growth. Nonprofits and local initiatives provide education, financial guidance, and resources to those in need. Innovation and entrepreneurship continue to offer pathways for advancement, though these opportunities are often unevenly distributed. Understanding the decline of the American middle class requires not only examining the past, but also confronting the present and imagining the future. The forces at play, globalization, automation, policy decisions, and systemic inequality, are complex and interconnected. Solutions require a multifaceted approach, including education reform, equitable economic policies, labor protections, and community support. The American dream, while challenged, is not irretrievably lost. It remains a concept that inspires millions and motivates action. Preserving it requires awareness, engagement, and commitment to creating a society where opportunity is not limited to a privileged few but accessible to all. The story of the middle class is ultimately a story about fairness, opportunity, and the values that define a nation. It is about ensuring that hard work, integrity, and ambition are rewarded, and that families can look forward to a future filled with possibility rather than uncertainty. For millions of Americans, the question is no longer whether the American dream exists, but whether it can survive in its traditional form. The challenge is immense, but so too is the capacity for innovation, resilience, and reform. By understanding the forces that have eroded opportunity, society can chart a path toward rebuilding a middle class that is secure, empowered, and capable of sustaining the promise of the American dream. This documentary tells the stories of those affected, the experts who study the trends, and the communities seeking solutions. It seeks not only to highlight the decline, but also to inspire action, reflection, and hope. For without recognition of the problem, there can be no meaningful change, and without action, the promise of the American dream may continue to fade. We explore the personal stories of families who have struggled to maintain stability, often working multiple jobs while trying to raise children, pay off student loans, and cover increasing living expenses. These stories put a human face on the statistics and make the economic crisis tangible. We examine the policies and economic decisions that have contributed to this decline, from deregulation and tax policies to trade agreements and labor laws. Experts weigh in on how these factors have disproportionately affected the middle class while allowing wealth to concentrate at the top. Finally, we consider what the future might hold. How can communities rebuild? How can policy interventions restore opportunity and stability? How can the middle class adapt to the realities of a global economy and technological change? The decline of the middle class is not inevitable. It is a reflection of choices made at every level of society, from government policy to corporate strategy, from community support to individual resilience. By examining these choices, understanding their consequences, and exploring solutions, we can begin to chart a path forward. America has faced challenges before. Economic recessions, industrial shifts, and social transformations have tested the nation throughout its history. Yet the resilience and ingenuity of its people have repeatedly overcome adversity. The question now is whether the same resilience can preserve the values, opportunities, and aspirations that define the American dream for the middle class in the 21st century. The story is ongoing, and the outcome is not yet determined. But awareness is the first step toward change. Understanding the forces that have undermined the middle class, hearing the voices of those affected, and recognizing the need for collective action are essential components of preserving the promise of the American dream. In conclusion, the decline of the American middle class is a complex, multifaceted issue with deep historical roots and profound social implications. It affects not only individual families but the broader society, shaping economic trends, political landscapes, and cultural narratives. By exploring this decline in depth, reflecting on its causes, and considering pathways for reform, we can hope to revive the American dream, not as a distant ideal, but as a living, attainable reality for generations to come.